The courtroom stenographer's fingers never stopped moving. Click, click, click. I'd been counting the rhythm for the past hour, using it to keep my breathing steady while I sat in the gallery, anonymous among the sea of faces watching Marcus Chen's legal empire crumble. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My fiancé, though he didn't know I'd already removed the engagement ring this morning, sat at the defense table in his $1,000 suit, radiating the confidence of a man who believed he was untouchable. His attorney, Gerald Wright, was mid-argument about procedural technicalities, trying to dismiss the international fraud charges that could put Marcus away for 15 years. What Marcus didn't know, what nobody in this courtroom knew except the judge, was that I'd be walking through those heavy oak doors in exactly 7 minutes as the certified court translator for the prosecution's key evidence, 47 recorded phone conversations in Italian between Marcus and his offshore business partners. The same recordings where he'd also discussed his ignorant American girlfriend who couldn't tell Dante from a deli menu. The girlfriend who'd spent 6 years getting her doctorate in Romance languages from Stanford. The girlfriend who'd worked as a contract translator for the FBI for the past 3 years. The girlfriend who'd been living a carefully constructed double life, keeping her professional credentials buried under the persona of a sweet, naive elementary school teacher. 7 minutes. I check my watch again. The Italian documents I'd translated over the past 3 months sat in a secure folder in the prosecution's evidence room. Every word of Marcus's arrogance, preserved in both languages, every detail of his multi-million-dollar scheme, laid bare. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. 3 months ago, I was sitting in our downtown loft, Marcus's loft, though he always called it ours, with that generous smile that made people trust him, working through a stack of second-grade spelling tests. The May sunshine was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the exposed brick walls and sleek furniture that Marcus had selected. Everything in that space screamed money, though he'd always been vague about exactly how his import-export consulting firm generated such impressive revenue. I'd learned not to ask too many questions, not because I was genuinely ignorant, but because 3 years into our relationship, I'd realized that Marcus Chen preferred his women admiring rather than inquiring. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca Zhang, my FBI handler. New case, high priority, international fraud. Subject speaks Italian in communications. Need full translation suite. Usual rate plus 40%. Available? I glanced toward the bedroom where Marcus was taking his afternoon conference call. Through the crack in the door, I could hear his voice, smooth and persuasive, closing some deal. He'd be occupied for at least another hour. I typed back, "Send the file." The document arrived in my encrypted email within minutes. As I opened it, my finger instinctively moved to close the tab, some reflex from years of keeping my 2 lives separate. But then I saw the name on the first page of the investigative summary. Chen, Marcus William, Dobb, 03415 Pa, 1988. Primary residence, 2847 Waterfront Drive, Unit 4C, our address. My hands went numb. The tablet nearly slipped from my grip. I sat there for what might have been seconds or hours, staring at Marcus's name, his photo, his business registration documents. The FBI had been building a case against Chen Imports for 14 months. Wire fraud, money laundering, falsified customs documents, a sophisticated operation moving counterfeit luxury goods through a network of Italian suppliers, with Marcus as the American hub. And they needed someone to translate the recorded conversations between Marcus and his Italian contacts. The irony would have been funny if my entire world wasn't collapsing around my ears. I heard Marcus's door open. Muscle memory took over. I closed my tablet, picked up a spelling test, and arranged my face into its familiar expression of pleasant contentment. Still grading? Marcus crossed the room, dropping a kiss on the top of my head. He smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. You work too hard for what they pay you, babe. Someone has to teach the kids their ABCs, I said lightly, the same deflection I'd used 100 times. He chuckled, already moving toward the kitchen. Speaking of work, I need to fly to New York tomorrow. Quick meeting with some potential clients. Back Thursday. New York was probably code for wherever his illegal operations actually took him. Rome, maybe. Or Milan. Want me to pick up anything special for dinner tonight? He called from the kitchen. We could do that Thai place you love. This was Marcus's pattern. Absent and dismissive most of the time, but periodically generous with gestures that cost money but required no emotional investment. A nice dinner, an expensive necklace, a weekend trip. Enough to make me feel guilty when doubt crept in. Thai sounds good, I managed. He appeared in the doorway loosening his tie. You're the best, you know that? So easy. No drama. Not like my ex who needed constant attention and validation. He grinned. Found myself a nice, uncomplicated girl. Uncomplicated. Right. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with my encrypted phone, reading through the FBI's case file. There were over 300 pages of evidence, financial records, shipping manifests, email correspondence, and those 47 phone conversations in Italian, currently sitting untranslated in an evidence locker because the Bureau's regular Italian translator had taken emergency medical leave. The conversations dated back 9 months. I started listening to the first recording, my headphones' volume turned low. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus's voice came through, speaking rapid Italian with a decent but clearly American accent. Sì, la spedizione arriva martedì. Ho già preparato i documenti falsi per la dogana. Yes. The shipment arrives Tuesday. I've already prepared the false customs documents. A man's voice responded, older, with a thick Neapolitan accent. Bene. E la tua ragazza? Lei non sospetta niente? Good. And your girlfriend? She doesn't suspect anything? Marcus laughed. Lucia, lei? No, no. È ignorante come un sasso. Pensa che io venda mobili legittimi. Non saprebbe riconoscere una borsa Gucci falsa anche se le colpisse in faccia. Lucia, her. No, no. She's dumb as a rock. She thinks I sell legitimate furniture. She wouldn't recognize a fake Gucci bag even if it hit her in the face. My hands clenched around the phone. Lucia. My name. He was talking about me. È perfetta. Marcus continued. Bella, dolce, e troppo stupida per fare domande. Passo la notte con Vanessa quando dico che sono in viaggio d'affari, e Lucia mi crede sempre. She's perfect. Beautiful, sweet, and too stupid to ask questions. I spend the night with Vanessa when I say I'm on business trips, and Lucia always believes me. Vanessa. There was someone named Vanessa. I sat on the cold bathroom tile listening to recording after recording. Marcus had been running this operation for over 2 years, which meant our entire relationship was built during his criminal enterprise. The Italian contacts called him Il Principe, the prince, apparently amused by his American arrogance and his belief that he was smarter than everyone else. And woven throughout the business discussions were casual mentions of me, his ignorant girlfriend, his convenient cover, his alibi, and Vanessa. Vanessa, who apparently worked at one of the galleries where Marcus sourced his legitimate antique furniture. Vanessa, who met him at hotels during his business trips. Vanessa, who, according to one recording, knew exactly what Marcus really did and found it exciting. By 4 a.m., I'd listened to all 47 recordings. I'd taken detailed notes in Italian, then begun the translation process with the cold precision that had earned me commendations from the bureau. By the time Marcus's alarm went off at 7, I had a plan. I would take the case. I would translate every word of his betrayal with perfect accuracy, and I would deliver the testimony that would dismantle his freedom piece by piece, just as he'd been dismantling my trust for years. But first, I needed to play my part a little longer. "Morning, sleepyhead," Marcus said as I emerged from the bedroom, carefully timed to look like I'd just woken up. "Want me to make coffee before I head to the airport?" "That would be lovely," I said, letting my voice carry that soft, grateful tone he expected. While he banged around in the kitchen, I sat at the breakfast bar, watching him. Really watching him, maybe for the first time in years. The way he moved with such confidence through this space, this life he'd built on lies. The casual ownership he displayed toward everything, the espresso machine, the imported tile. Me. "You seem quiet," he said, sliding a perfectly crafted cappuccino across the counter. He'd taken a barista course once, not because he needed the skill, but because he liked the admiration it earned him. "Everything okay? Just tired, didn't sleep well?" "Well, try to rest while I'm gone. Maybe get together with those teacher friends of yours." He checked his watch. Another Rolex, probably purchased with fraud money. "I should get going. Car service is coming in 20. He kissed me goodbye at the door, his hand cupping my face with what might have been tenderness if I didn't know better now. "Love you, babe. Be good." "Always am," I said. The moment the door closed, I called Rebecca. "I'm taking the case," I said without preamble, "but there are conditions." We met at a coffee shop in Oakland, far from anywhere Marcus or his associates might frequent. Rebecca slid a folder across the table, her expression professional but concerned. "Are you sure about this, Lucia? I can have another translator brought in from Los Angeles. Given your personal connection—" "That's exactly why it has to be me," I interrupted. "I know his voice. I know his patterns. I can catch nuances that another translator might miss. And legally, there's no conflict. I'm not a defendant, not a witness to the actual crimes. I'm just the translator." Rebecca's dark eyes studied me. We'd worked together for 3 years, ever since I'd passed the Bureau's rigorous translation certification. She'd seen me handle murder cases, trafficking cases, organized crime. But never anything personal. "This won't be easy," she said carefully. "You'll have to listen to him disparage you, lie about you, discuss his affair. For hours, and maintain complete professional objectivity in your translations. I can do it. And when it goes to trial, you might have to testify about the accuracy of your translations, face his attorneys, face him." "I can do it," I repeated, my voice harder now. She sighed. "The prosecution is moving fast. They want to arrest him before he can flee the country. We've traced communication suggesting he's planning to move significant assets offshore next month. We need the translations completed within 6 weeks. I'll have them done in 4. And Marcus? What will you tell him?" "Nothing," I said. "I'll be the uncomplicated girlfriend right up until the moment the FBI puts him in handcuffs." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Okay. But Lucia, when this is over, you're taking a vacation. On the Bureau's dime. You're going to need it." I didn't tell her that I was already planning what I'd do after. The graduate fellowship in Florence I'd turned down 3 years ago when Marcus had proposed. They'd held the offer open, hoping I'd reconsider. The apartment near Piazza Santa Croce that my mentor still wanted to sublet to me. The life I'd deferred because I thought I was building something real here. That afternoon, while Marcus was supposedly flying to New York, I began the detailed translation work. Each recording had to be transcribed in Italian first, then translated to English, with annotations for context, tone, and cultural nuances. It was painstaking work, made worse by having to hear Marcus's voice for hours, speaking with an intimacy and openness he never showed me in English. To his Italian contacts, he was witty, clever, strategic. He made jokes. He told stories. He discussed art and history and food with genuine enthusiasm. To me, in English, he was surface level, pleasant but shallow, present but distant. I wondered if the real Marcus was the one who spoke Italian to criminals, or if that was just another mask. By the end of the first week, I'd translated 15 recordings and documented 3 distinct Italian contacts: Giovanni Russo, the Neapolitan supplier of counterfeit luxury goods; Alessandro Moretti, a Milan-based customs broker who helped falsify shipping documents; and Leonardo Ferrara, a Venice antiquities dealer who served as the network's money launderer. And then there was Vanessa Cole. She appeared in recording number 16, her voice breathy and amused as Marcus called her from what he'd told me was a client dinner. "Tell me what you're wearing," Marcus said in English this time, though he peppered his speech with Italian endearments. "Dio, I miss you, Bella. This whole week without you." I forced myself to keep typing, transcribing their conversation with clinical accuracy. She was meeting him in New York, apparently, at the Plaza, room 1847. The same room number he'd texted me about, saying it was where his client meetings were happening. I documented everything, not because it was relevant to the fraud case, but because the FBI had taught me that you never knew which details would matter later. Marcus returned from New York on Thursday, bearing gifts, a Tiffany bracelet for me, which probably cost him nothing, given that his operation specialized in luxury counterfeits. I wore it, smiled, thanked him. "How were the client meetings?" I asked over dinner. "Productive, really productive." He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I'm building something incredible, Lucia. In a few years, we're going to be set for life." The casual lies had always been there, I realized. I'd just chosen not to see them. "That's wonderful," I said, playing my role perfectly. "I'm so proud of you." The next 3 weeks blurred together. During the day, I taught second graders their multiplication tables and read them stories about friendship and honesty. During the evenings when Marcus was home, I graded papers and cooked dinner and listened to his vague stories about business meetings. And late at night, after he fell asleep, I put on my headphones and translated the recordings of his criminal enterprise, hour after hour, turning his Italian confessions into English evidence. The work was emotionally exhausting, but I found a strange satisfaction in it. Every word I translated was another nail in the coffin of his freedom. Every conversation I documented was another piece of justice. Recording number 32 was particularly damning. Marcus and Giovanni were discussing a shipment of fake Hermes bags, over 5,000 units with a retail fraud value of $40 million. But midway through the logistics discussion, Giovanni asked about me again. "La tua ragazza, come si chiama? Lucia, è ancora all'oscuro?" "Your girlfriend, what's her name?" "Lucia. Is she still in the dark?" Marcus laughed, that easy, confident laugh I'd once found charming. "Completamente. Le ho detto che vado a una conferenza a Seattle il prossimo mese. In realtà, Vanessa e io andremo alle Maldive. Lucia preparerà persino la mia valigia, probabilmente." Completely. I told her I'm going to a conference in Seattle next month. In reality, Vanessa and I are going to the Maldives. Lucia will probably even pack my suitcase. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd moved past that by now. This was something else. Determination. Resolve. I checked my calendar. Marcus had indeed mentioned a Seattle conference next month. I'd already planned to use that week to deep clean the apartment, visit my sister in Sacramento, maybe grade the stack of essays I'd been putting off. Instead, I'd be sitting in a federal courtroom, translating the evidence that would destroy him. By week 4, I'd completed all 47 translations, along with detailed supplementary documents explaining Italian idioms, cultural context, and regional dialect variations. The prosecution's attorneys were thrilled. Rebecca told me it was some of the most thorough translation work the Bureau had ever received. The DA wants to move forward with arrests next week, she told me over our usual coffee meeting. They're confident they have enough with your translations and the financial evidence. Next week? My voice sounded calm, but my heart was racing. Tuesday morning, they'll execute arrest warrants at 6 a.m. at multiple locations: Marcus's office, his warehouse in Oakland, Giovanni Russo's New York offices, coordinated with Italian authorities for the overseas arrests. Tuesday. I had 5 days to prepare myself for the moment when my double life would finally collide with Marcus's. What do I do? I asked. When they arrest him? Ideally. Not be there. Can you arrange to be somewhere else Tuesday morning? I thought about it. I could tell Marcus I have an early breakfast with my sister. She's been asking me to visit anyway. Good. Be with family. And Lucia? Rebecca's voice softened. When this hits the news, it's going to be intense. Marcus Chen is well known in certain business circles. The press will eat this up. The successful businessman, the hidden criminal enterprise. They'll probably try to interview you. What should I say? Nothing. Refer them to the Bureau's press office. You're a federal contractor. You're protected under witness confidentiality protocols. She paused. But they'll still speculate about you. The girlfriend who didn't know. The woman who lived with a criminal. They won't be kind. I'd thought about this already, during the long nights of translation. The humiliation of being painted as the naive fool. Even though I'd been instrumental in bringing Marcus down. The irony was sharp. I'd have to let the world think I was exactly what Marcus had always believed me to be. I can handle it, I said. That weekend, Marcus was particularly attentive. He took me to brunch at our favorite spot overlooking the bay. He held my hand as we walked through the ferry building market. He bought me flowers, peonies, which he actually remembered were my favorite. You seem happy, I observed. I am. Things are finally coming together, you know? The business is solid. I've got this incredible woman. He pulled me close. I'm thinking maybe we should start planning the wedding. What do you think about next spring? Somewhere in wine country? I looked at him. This man who'd proposed to me 18 months ago with a stunning ring and pretty words. And I felt absolutely nothing. No love, no anger, not even satisfaction at what was coming. Just emptiness. Spring sounds nice, I said. Monday night, I packed a small bag, telling Marcus I was spending Tuesday morning with my sister Nicole in Sacramento. She'd been asking me to visit for weeks, I explained, and I'd finally found time before the summer school program started. That's great, babe, Marcus said, barely looking up from his laptop. Tell Nicole I said hi. Drive safe. I will. What are your plans tomorrow? Early gym session, then heading into the office. We've got a big shipment coming in from Italy. Giovanni's sending over some premium pieces. The counterfeit Hermes bags. I'd read the customs documents in the evidence file. They were scheduled to arrive at Oakland Port at 11 a.m., where FBI agents would be waiting. Sounds exciting, I said neutrally. I left at 5 a.m. Tuesday, before Marcus woke up. I'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Having breakfast with Nicole, back tonight. Love you. And drove to my sister's house in Sacramento, where I proceeded to have what might have been the strangest morning of my life. Nicole made pancakes while I sat at her kitchen table, checking my phone obsessively. She knew something was wrong but had learned over the years not to push me until I was ready to talk. At 6:17 a.m., Rebecca texted, "Arrests executed, all targets in custody." My hands started shaking. Nicole noticed immediately, crossing the kitchen to put a steadying hand on my shoulder. "Lucia, what's going on?" I looked up at my little sister, who'd always thought I had the perfect life, the handsome fiancé, the beautiful apartment, the uncomplicated happiness. And I started talking. I told her everything. About my work with the FBI, about the case, about Marcus's betrayal, about the translations I'd spent a month completing, about the fact that the man she'd sat across from at family dinners, who she'd toasted at my engagement party, was currently being arrested for international fraud. Nicole sat down heavily. Holy shit. Yeah. You've been working for the FBI? For 3 years? Yeah. And translating Marcus's crimes? Yeah. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, he called you dumb as a rock in Italian? I couldn't help it. I laughed. It came out slightly hysterical, but it was genuine. Among other things, that absolute bastard. Nicole's face was flushed with anger. You have a doctorate, you speak 5 languages. You've been playing him this entire time and he had no idea. I wasn't playing him initially, I corrected. I was just keeping my professional life private. The playing part only started 3 months ago. Still counts. She grabbed her phone. This is going to be all over the news. Are you ready for that? I wasn't sure I was ready for anything, but at 7:43 a.m. my phone started ringing. Unknown number, then another, then another. Rebecca called. The press has the story. It's already trending on Twitter. Marcus's arrest is the lead story on every local news site. How are you holding up? I'm okay. I'm with my sister. Good. Stay there. Don't answer any calls from numbers you don't recognize. The Bureau is handling all press inquiries, but you should know. They're identifying you as Marcus's fiancé. Some outlets are already running photos from your social media. After we hung up, I made the mistake of checking my phone. Twitter was indeed exploding. Hark Marcus Chen was trending. The photos were from my Instagram, me and Marcus at charity galas, vacation snapshots, couple selfies. All the carefully curated images of our supposedly perfect relationship. And the comments were brutal. How did she not know? Poor woman was completely clueless. Gold digger probably knew and didn't care. She must be devastated. Or she's an idiot. Nicole read over my shoulder, her expression darkening. Don't read that garbage. But I couldn't look away. It was fascinating in a horrible way, seeing how the narrative was forming. I was either a naive victim or a knowing accomplice, either pathetically ignorant or cunningly mercenary. The possibility that I might be neither, that I might be the one who'd actually brought Marcus down, never seemed to occur to anyone, because nobody knew about my role in the translation. That detail was carefully protected, buried in sealed court documents. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is this Lucia Torres? I'm with the San Francisco Chronicle. I'd love to speak with you about Marcus Chen. Your side of the story deserves to be heard. Delete. Another. ABC 7 News here. We're running a segment on Marcus Chen tonight. Would you be willing to do an on-camera interview? Delete. Stay with me for a few days, Nicole said firmly. At least until the initial media frenzy dies down. You're not going back to that apartment alone right now. She was right. The apartment was Marcus's anyway. I'd never officially moved in. Never put my name on the lease. Just like I'd never merged our bank accounts. Never made any legal commitments beyond the engagement. Some instinct had kept me from fully entangling my life with his. Thank God for that instinct. Over the next 3 days, I stayed at Nicole's house, watching from a distance as Marcus's case exploded in the media. The FBI released details gradually, the scope of the operation, the estimated fraud totaling over $60 million, the international connections. They'd seized Marcus's accounts, his cars, his office contents, and they'd found something else. Extensive evidence of the affair with Vanessa Cole, who turned out to be married herself. That detail sent the tabloids into a feeding frenzy. On Thursday, Rebecca called with an update. The DA wants you to testify at the preliminary hearing. It's scheduled for 2 weeks from now. They need you to authenticate your translations and explain your methodology. In person? Yes, in court, with Marcus present. My stomach dropped. He still doesn't know, does he? That I did the translations? No. His attorney knows the evidence came from certified Italian translations, but the translator's identity is sealed. Until you walk into that courtroom and state your name and credentials for the record, he'll have no idea. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to prepare myself for the moment when Marcus Chen would realize that his ignorant, uncomplicated girlfriend had been the one to dismantle his entire world, one Italian word at a time. I'll be there, I said. Those 2 weeks felt both endless and far too short. I returned to the apartment one afternoon with Nicole and 2 FBI agents to collect my belongings. The space felt foreign now, like a stage set from a play I'd stopped performing in. I packed efficiently: clothes, books, the few pieces of furniture that were actually mine. The engagement ring I left on the kitchen counter with a brief note: "Found someone more honest." I moved into Nicole's spare room temporarily, making plans to sublet an apartment closer to the courthouse. The FBI had expedited my payment for the translation work, along with a substantial bonus for the difficulty and personal nature of the case. It was enough to cover several months of rent and give me time to figure out my next move. The graduate fellowship in Florence was still open. The director had emailed me twice since Marcus's arrest, carefully not mentioning the scandal, but making it clear the offer stood. I'd spent 3 years putting my dreams on hold for a man who'd seen me as nothing more than convenient cover. Maybe it was time to stop hiding my light. The day before the preliminary hearing, Rebecca came by with my official court summons and a briefing on what to expect. Marcus's attorney is Gerald Wright. He's good, but he's conventional. He'll try to challenge your qualifications, suggest bias due to your relationship, maybe imply you mistranslated something to incriminate Marcus. Don't let him rattle you. I won't. The prosecution will establish your credentials first. They'll walk through your education, your FBI clearance, your previous translation work. Then they'll have you authenticate your translations. You'll need to explain your process, confirm the accuracy, identify Marcus's voice on the recordings. I've done this before, I reminded her. I've testified in 3 other cases. Not against your fiancé. Ex-fiancé. Rebecca's expression softened. How are you really doing with all this? I considered the question. How was I doing? I'd spent the past 3 months translating my partner's betrayal, documenting his crimes, preparing his downfall. I'd had my name dragged through the media, my relationship dissected by strangers, my intelligence questioned by people who'd never met me, and yet I felt clearer than I had in years. I'm okay, I said honestly. I'm angry and hurt and exhausted, but I'm okay. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. That night, I laid out my clothes for court, a tailored navy suit, professional but not severe, pearl earrings, minimal makeup. I wanted to look competent, credible, unremarkable, just another expert witness doing her job. I practiced my testimony in the mirror, speaking with the calm authority I'd developed over years of courtroom appearances. Name, credentials, methodology, simple questions with straightforward answers. But I also practiced for the moment when I'd have to look at Marcus, when our eyes would meet and he'd realize what I'd done, what I'd always been capable of doing. I fell asleep early, surprisingly calm. Tomorrow would change everything. Or rather, tomorrow would reveal everything that had already changed. The courthouse was imposing in the morning light, all granite and glass and the weight of justice. I met the prosecution team, District Attorney Jennifer Morrison and her assistant counsel David Park, in a conference room an hour before the hearing. You ready for this? Jennifer asked, her sharp eyes assessing me. Yes. Marcus will be in the room. His attorneys will be trying to discredit you. The media is going to go crazy when they realize you're the translator. Are you prepared for that? I've spent 3 years keeping secrets, I said calmly. I'm prepared. At 9:55 a.m., we walked toward courtroom 4B. Through the narrow window in the door, I could see the gallery filling up. Journalists, legal observers, curious spectators drawn by the sensational nature of the case. And there, at the defense table in another expensive suit, sat Marcus Chen. He looked different somehow, smaller. The confidence I'd always associated with him seemed dimmed, replaced by a tight anxiety around his eyes. Gerald Wright sat beside him, shuffling papers with practiced efficiency. Jennifer turned to me. Last chance to back out. I'm not backing out. Then let's go deliver some justice. The bailiff opened the door. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Whitmore. And I walked into the courtroom, anonymous among the prosecution team, while Marcus Chen sat 20 feet away, completely unaware that his ignorant girlfriend was about to speak. The courtroom settled into silence as Judge Whitmore took her seat. I sat in the front row behind the prosecution table, maintaining the same invisible composure I'd perfected over 3 years of federal contract work. Marcus hadn't noticed me yet. His attention was fixed on his attorney, who was whispering urgently in his ear. The court calls Dr. Lucia Maria Torres to the stand. The words echoed through the courtroom. I stood, smoothing my suit jacket, and walked toward the witness stand with measured steps. That's when Marcus saw me. His head snapped up, confusion flickering across his face. What was I doing here? His expression said. Had I come to support him? To testify about his character? The bailiff held out the Bible. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth? And nothing but the truth? I do. Please state your name and occupation for the record. I looked directly at the court reporter, not at Marcus. Not yet. Dr. Lucia Maria Torres. I hold a doctorate in Romance languages from Stanford University and work as a certified court translator for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Someone in the gallery gasped. I heard the rapid clicking of laptop keys as journalists scrambled to update their stories. Now I looked at Marcus. The color had drained from his face. His mouth opened slightly, closed, opened again. He looked like a man watching his entire reality restructure itself in real time. His attorney touched his arm, but Marcus didn't seem to notice. Jennifer Morrison approached the witness stand, her voice clear and professional. Dr. Torres, how long have you worked as a federal translator? 3 years. I've completed 42 certified translations for various federal cases, including organized crime, international fraud, and trafficking operations. And what languages do you translate? I'm certified in Italian, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Catalan. My specialization is Italian, with particular expertise in regional dialects including Neapolitan, Sicilian, and Venetian variants. Jennifer pulled up a document on the courtroom screen, my CV, credentials, certifications. The gallery leaned forward, reading, Stanford doctorate, FBI certification, published papers on linguistic forensics, professional memberships in 3 international translation societies. Marcus's face had gone from pale to gray. I watched him whisper something to Gerald Wright, who looked equally stunned. Dr. Torres, are you acquainted with the defendant, Marcus Chen? Here it was, the moment everything crystallized. Yes, we've been engaged for 18 months. We lived together for 3 years prior to his arrest. The courtroom exploded again. Judge Whitmore banged her gavel. Order. I will have order in this court. Jennifer waited for silence, then continued. And were you aware of Mr. Chen's business activities? I was aware that he claimed to operate an import-export consulting firm. I was not aware of the criminal nature of his activities until I was assigned to this case by the FBI. When were you assigned to this case? 3 months ago, May 15th. And what was your assignment? To translate 47 recorded phone conversations between Mr. Chen and his Italian business associates from Italian to English, and to provide certified documentation of those translations for use in federal prosecution. Marcus made a strangled sound. Gerald Wright was frantically taking notes, but I could see the defeat already settling into his posture. This was catastrophic for the defense. Jennifer walked me through the methodology step by step. How I'd received the encrypted audio files, how I'd transcribed each conversation in Italian first, then provided English translations with detailed annotations, how I'd documented cultural context, idioms, regional dialect variations, how I'd verified my work through multiple review passes and submitted it all under my federal certification oath. And Dr. Torres, during these translations, did you encounter conversations that referenced you personally? Yes. Can you describe the nature of those references? I kept my voice steady, clinical. Mr. Chen frequently discussed me with his Italian contacts. He referred to me as ignorant, stupid, and easy to deceive. He stated that I was unaware of his criminal activities and that I believed his cover story about legitimate business operations. He also discussed an extramarital affair he was conducting with a woman named Vanessa Cole, noting that I was unaware of this relationship as well. The journalists in the gallery were typing furiously. Someone's phone buzzed and was quickly silenced. Marcus was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Complete, unfiltered shock, mixed with something that might have been fear. He'd built his entire operation on the assumption that I was exactly what he'd told everyone I was: uncomplicated, trusting, intellectually limited. The foundation of his world had just revealed itself to be an illusion. Jennifer introduced the translated documents as evidence, all 47 conversations, bound in official federal folders with my certification seal on every page. Then she played one of the recordings. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom, speaking rapid Italian. Lei è ignorante come un sasso. Pensa che io venda mobili legittimi. Jennifer paused the recording. Dr. Torres, can you translate what we just heard? She's dumb as a rock. She thinks I sell legitimate furniture. And who is she in this context? Mr. Chen is referring to me. Another recording. Marcus laughing with Giovanni. Lucia preparerà persino la mia valigia, probabilmente. Translation, Dr. Torres? Lucia will probably even pack my suitcase. This was in reference to a trip Mr. Chen told me was a business conference in Seattle. He was actually planning to vacation in the Maldives with Ms. Cole. Jennifer played 3 more excerpts, each more damning than the last. Marcus discussing customs fraud, Marcus calculating profit margins on counterfeit goods, Marcus joking about how convenient it was to have a girlfriend who asked no questions. With each translation, I watched his face. The shock was fading, replaced by anger. His jaw clenched. His hands gripped the edge of the defense table. Finally, Jennifer asked, Dr. Torres, at any point during these 3 months of translation work, did you inform Mr. Chen that you were working on this case? No. Why not? Because I'm a federal contractor bound by confidentiality protocols. The FBI's investigation was ongoing and sensitive. Alerting a subject of investigation would constitute obstruction of justice. Did you maintain your relationship with Mr. Chen during this period? Yes. I continued living in his apartment and acting as his fiancé while completing the translation work. He had no indication that I was aware of his criminal activities or his affair. Marcus was shaking his head now, a small, unconscious movement. Denial, maybe. or just disbelief? Thank you, Dr. Torres. No further questions. Judge Whitmore turned to the defense table. Mr. Wright, do you wish to cross-examine? Gerald Wright stood slowly. He looked at me, then at his client, then at the stack of translated documents. I could see him calculating, trying to find an angle that wouldn't make things worse. Dr. Torres, he began carefully, isn't it true that you had a personal motivation to mistranslate these recordings? That discovering your fiancé's alleged affair might have colored your professional judgment? I'd been expecting this. My translations are certified under federal standards that require accuracy regardless of personal circumstances. Each translation has been reviewed by the FBI's Quality Control Division. If you'd like to hire your own Italian expert to verify my work, you're welcome to do so. But you admit you were angry when you discovered the affair. I admit I was disappointed to learn that Mr. Chen had misrepresented our relationship. However, my emotional state doesn't change the meaning of Italian words. Ignorante means ignorant in both languages. Stupida means stupid. These aren't subtle translations open to interpretation. Wright tried a different approach. You kept your professional credentials hidden from Mr. Chen for 3 years. Isn't that a form of deception? I maintained appropriate boundaries between my personal and professional life. Many people don't discuss their work extensively with their partners. That's not deception. It's privacy. But you specifically let him believe you were just an elementary school teacher. I am an elementary school teacher. I teach 2nd grade at Hawthorne Elementary. I also hold advanced degrees and work as a federal contractor. These things aren't mutually exclusive. Yet you never corrected him when he made assumptions about your intelligence or capabilities? I paused, choosing my words carefully. Mr. Chen made many assumptions about me. I didn't feel obligated to correct all of them. A ripple of reaction moved through the gallery. Even Judge Whitmore's mouth twitched slightly. Wright pressed on. Isn't it true that you've been planning some form of revenge against Mr. Chen? That this entire situation, your work on this case, your testimony today, is motivated by personal vindictiveness rather than justice? I met his eyes steadily. I translated Italian conversations into English with professional accuracy. If that constitutes revenge, then perhaps Mr. Chen shouldn't have committed federal crimes while discussing them in Italian. The gallery murmured approval. Judge Whitmore banged her gavel, but I caught a glimpse of something like satisfaction in her expression. Wright tried for another 20 minutes, but there was nowhere for him to go. My translations were accurate. My credentials were impeccable. My methodology was standard. And most devastatingly, my testimony was corroborated by financial records, shipping manifests, and testimony from other witnesses who'd been granted immunity. The affair with Vanessa, while personally humiliating for Marcus, was just icing on the evidentiary cake. No further questions, Wright finally said, defeated. Dr. Torres, you may step down, Judge Whitmore said. I returned to my seat behind the prosecution table. As I passed the defense table, Marcus's eyes followed me. Not with anger now, but with something closer to awe, horror mixed with grudging respect. He was finally seeing me, really seeing me for the first time. Too late. The preliminary hearing continued for another 3 hours. The prosecution introduced the financial evidence, the testimony from the Port Authority officers who'd intercepted the counterfeit shipments, the documentation from Italian law enforcement about Marcus's overseas contacts. It was overwhelming. Even Wright seemed to know it. When Judge Whitmore finally spoke, her voice was firm. Given the substantial evidence presented, including authenticated translations of the defendant's own words discussing criminal conspiracy, customs fraud, and money laundering, this court finds sufficient cause for trial. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Bail is denied given flight risk and international connections. The gavel came down. Marcus twisted in his seat, trying to catch my eye as the bailiffs approached him. I looked at him one last time. This man I'd thought I might marry. This person I'd lived with for 3 years. And felt absolutely nothing. "Lucia!" he called out as they led him away. "Lucia, wait, I can explain." I gathered my coat and followed Jennifer Morrison out the side exit, leaving his voice echoing behind me. The media was waiting outside, of course. Cameras, microphones, shouted questions. "Dr. Torres, how did you feel discovering your fiancé's crimes? Did you suspect anything before the FBI contacted you? Was the translation work difficult given your relationship? Are you going to write a book about this?" Rebecca and 2 FBI agents formed a protective barrier around me, guiding me to a waiting car. I said nothing, kept my eyes forward, let them think whatever they wanted. Once we were safely away from the courthouse, Rebecca turned to me. "You are incredible in there. Professional, composed, devastating. Wright never had a chance." "How long until trial?" I asked. Given the strength of the evidence, Marcus's attorney will probably advise him to take a plea deal. I'd guess within 6 weeks. Could be 15 to 20 years if he cooperates. 15 to 20 years. Time for him to learn, perhaps, what it felt like to be underestimated and discarded. The media firestorm that followed was intense but brief. The story dominated headlines for about a week. FBI Translator brings down fiancé's criminal empire. Woman's hidden PhD exposes boyfriend's fraud. But eventually got replaced by the next scandal, the next crisis, the next sensational headline. The narrative shifted too. I was no longer the naive girlfriend but the secret genius who'd played the long game. Neither version was quite accurate, but I preferred this one. Vanessa Cole's husband filed for divorce within days of the revelation. She lost her gallery job and, last I heard, moved back to her hometown in Ohio. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy. But perhaps recognition. She'd made choices based on who she thought Marcus was, just as I had. We'd both been wrong, just in different ways. 6 weeks later, as Rebecca predicted, Marcus accepted a plea deal. 15 years in federal prison in exchange for cooperating with the ongoing investigation into his Italian contacts. His assets were liquidated to pay restitution to the victims of his fraud. Companies and individuals who'd purchased counterfeit goods believing they were authentic. The apartment I'd shared with him was seized as part of the asset forfeiture. I didn't want anything from it anyway. I never spoke to Marcus again. He wrote me letters from prison. I could see them arrive, forwarded through the FBI. But I never opened them. What could he possibly say that would matter now? Instead, I did what I should have done 3 years ago. I accepted the fellowship in Florence. The morning I left San Francisco, Nicole drove me to the airport. We sat in her car outside the international terminal, neither of us quite ready for goodbye. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "Fresh start. Following your dreams. All that good stuff. I should have done it years ago. Maybe. But then you wouldn't have brought down a multi-million-dollar criminal operation using nothing but your brain and some headphones." She grinned. "That's pretty badass, sis." I laughed. "I suppose it is. Promise you'll call, and visit, and send me photos of handsome Italian men." "I promise." She hugged me fiercely. "I'm proud of you. For all of it. The languages, the courage, the way you handled everything. You're kind of my hero." "I love you too." Florence was everything I'd dreamed it would be. The fellowship gave me access to Renaissance archives, rare manuscripts, historical documents that most scholars only saw in photographs. I spent my days translating medieval poetry and my evenings walking along the Arno, watching the sun set over the Ponte Vecchio. I rented a small apartment near Santo Spirito, all terracotta floors and shuttered windows that opened onto a view of red rooftops and distant hills. It was nothing like the modern luxury of Marcus's place, but it was mine, truly mine. I started teaching again, too. Advanced Italian linguistics at the University of Florence. My students were bright and curious, asking intelligent questions about dialect variation and historical language evolution. No one asked me to play dumb or stay small. 6 months into my fellowship, I was at a cafe near Piazza della Repubblica when my phone rang. Unknown number, but American area code. Dr. Torres, this is Jennifer Morrison. Do you have a moment? Of course. I wanted to update you on the Chen case. The Italian authorities just arrested Giovanni Russo and Alessandro Moretti. Your translations were instrumental in securing international warrants. We've essentially dismantled the entire counterfeit operation. I watched a pigeon land on the cobblestones, picking at crumbs from someone's cornetto. That's good news. More than good. Your work on this case has been remarkable. The Bureau wants to offer you a permanent position, senior translator with security clearance for international cases, better pay, full benefits, remote work allowed. You could do it from Italy if you wanted. I sipped my espresso considering. A permanent position meant stability, recognition, interesting work. It meant using my skills for something that mattered. It also meant staying connected in some small way to the case that had defined the past year of my life. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready. After we hung up, I sat at that cafe for another hour, watching Florence move around me. Tourists consulting maps, locals greeting friends with kisses on both cheeks, artists sketching the Duomo's distant dome. I thought about Marcus in prison, finally forced to be as small as he'd tried to make me. I thought about the life I'd deferred, the dreams I'd almost abandoned. I thought about the woman I'd pretended to be, and the woman I actually was. Then I opened my laptop and started drafting a response to Jennifer Morrison. I would take the position, but on my terms. Remote work from Florence, cases that interested me, the freedom to maintain my fellowship and my teaching. A life built on my own foundation, not someone else's illusions. 2 weeks later, I received confirmation. Senior translator, International Division, based in Florence. I'd use my languages to bring down criminals, just as I'd done with Marcus. But this time, I wouldn't be hiding what I was capable of. That evening, I walked to my favorite viewpoint on Piazzale Michelangelo, where you could see the whole city spread out below, the Duomo, the Palazzo Vecchio, the Arno winding through like a silver ribbon. My phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Saw the news. They arrested the last guy in Marcus's network. You did that. You're amazing. I smiled, typing back. We did that. You helped me survive it. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. A street musician somewhere below was playing violin, the notes floating up through the warm air. I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, hiding her light to seem less threatening. The woman who'd kept her doctorate quiet, who'd pretended her languages were just a hobby, who'd made herself small because she'd been hurt before and was afraid of being hurt again. She'd learned eventually that making yourself small doesn't protect you. It just makes you easier to overlook. But that woman was gone now. In her place was someone who understood that her capabilities weren't something to hide or apologize for. Someone who knew that being underestimated was sometimes a weapon, but only if you chose when to reveal the truth. Marcus had called me ignorant in Italian, never imagining I'd understand every word. The real ignorance, I'd learned, was his. He'd looked at me and seen only what he wanted to see, the compliant girlfriend, the uncomplicated woman, the convenient alibi. He'd never bothered to look deeper, to ask questions, to wonder if there might be more to me than the surface I chose to show, and that willful blindness had destroyed him. I stayed on that hillside until full dark, watching the lights of Florence sparkle below like scattered diamonds. Somewhere in that city was my future, my research, my students, my work with the FBI, maybe even someone who would see me for who I actually was. But tonight, I was content to be alone with my thoughts and my hard-won peace. The next morning, I woke early and walked to the Uffizi for a research session. As I passed the Ponte Vecchio, my phone rang again. Rebecca this time. "Morning, Dr. Torres. How's Florence?" "Beautiful, complicated, perfect." "Good. I'm calling because we have a new case. Portuguese-speaking trafficking network operating between Brazil and New York. We need someone who understands both the language and the legal complexities. Interested?" I stopped walking, standing in the middle of the bridge while tourists flowed around me like water around a stone. A new case. New criminals who thought they were smarter than everyone else. New opportunities to prove them wrong. "Send me the details," I said. "I'll start tonight." Because this was who I was now. Not Marcus Chen's ignorant girlfriend, not the woman who made herself small, but Dr. Lucia Maria Torres, translator, scholar, and the person who turned criminals' own words against them. In Italian, in Portuguese, in any language they chose to hide behind. I'd found my calling in the rubble of my failed relationship. I discovered that sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or immediate. It's simply becoming the fullest version of yourself, the person you were always meant to be. And if that person happened to be skilled at dismantling criminal empires through linguistic precision, well, that was just a bonus. I continued across the bridge, already mentally preparing for the new case, my mind switching languages as easily as breathing. The morning sun warmed my shoulders, and somewhere in the distance, church bells began to ring. Marcus Chen had taught me an important lesson, though not the one he'd intended. Never underestimate someone just because they choose not to show you everything they're capable of. That ignorance had cost him 15 years of freedom. As for me, I'd finally stopped hiding my light. And the view from here, free, accomplished, genuine, was absolutely magnificent. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.